Well, I think today we'll talk about classic blankets. These are real blankets that were worn basically like I'm wearing it now. In fact, a blanket like this, which came from the New Mexico governor when he was a territorial governor in the 1870s, was a very valuable commodity even in its day. In fact, a great blanket like this in the 1870s could bring upwards to $250 to even maybe $300. And by the turn of the century, people like Randolph Hearst of the Hearst Publishing would be paying upwards to $1,500 for a great blanket like this. In today's market, classic blankets can bring anywhere from $75,000 kind of at the lower end upwards to $500,000. The thing that makes these so beautiful and so interesting as well as rare is when they were made. The classic period like this time frame was done anywhere from about the 1750s upwards to 1860s. Once the Navajos went to the Bosque Redondo, which is where they were interned as prisoners of war, a new period started, which was the late classic period. Now, when you look to blankets, you can see these are all classic blankets as well. What makes a classic blanket has to do with the composition. And one of the things that you look for is this, which is Bayeta. Bayeta was a trade cloth. This was a commercially made product, came in bolts of cloth, that the Navajos would either trade from the Spanish or white settlers, or sometimes they would just take the cloths. They would do raids. This particular piece actually came from a Navajo man, and we know the history on it, and it had been in his family since the 1860s. What the trade cloth is interesting is that the small little threads that you can see on it would actually be unraveled and then either paired or recarded to form what we have here. This in here is a similar cloth. This is a trade cloth or Bayeta that was used. In fact, if you look at these blankets here, these all are early classic pieces from that 1860s time frame, and they all use Bayeta or red trade cloth. All this cloth was, in this particular case, was a natural dye, either lac or cochineal, which were small little parasites that live on Nopal cactus. It's very difficult to collect it. They would collect these things, then they would be used as an export, made into something like this, which is a commercially made piece. Then the Navajos would trade for it, unravel it, respin it. You can imagine the time that it would take to make such a dense textile like this. It could take anywhere from a year to maybe even a year and a half from the process of spinning, unraveling the Bayeta, reusing it, and then making the final piece. It took an expert person in the craftsman to make something like this, as well as an artist. Classic blankets are very collectible. They're hard to find, and when you do, you're probably going to pay a lot, unless it happens to be like the Antiques Roadshow, where it's sitting on the back of your couch.